Golden Maple were kind enough to send us a face and skin colour set and some fine detail brushes. A very kind thing to do. So, let's repay their kindness by putting the paints through the rigour. Hello and welcome to The Lucky Roll, an eclectic channel for eclectic games, and today we're going to be doing a different kind of review. Normally we would review board games. However, board games these days are coming with more and more elaborate minis, more and more elaborate set pieces, and are in increasingly more and more exotic settings. And there's a lot of board gamers out there, myself included, that love to paint up the minis, especially if they are Warhammer or Age of Sigmar fans. So when Golden Maple gave us the chance to review their face and skin color set and to check out some of their brushes, we literally jumped at the chance. Now I thought to myself, what's the best way to actually review flesh and face and skin colors? And that would be to paint the skin on some Carrick acolytes. Now Carrick acolytes, as you know, would be the disciples of Tzeentch. They'd be from the Age of Sigmar. I didn't pick these models up because I'm a huge advocate of Tzeentch. I just picked them up because they're big, half-naked men with muscles coming out of their ears, and I thought no better way than to show off skin colors than to paint up a load of these guys. Now, I also assembled 16 of them. Now, I didn't bother with the heads and I didn't bother with the swords because it's the skin we want to check out. And I have 8 in white and 8 in black. So, with each color set in this box, I'm going to try them on the black base and on the white base, and we'll see for ourselves what little results we get. Now, before I start painting the first mini, I just want to show you what you get inside the little face and skin color set. They all come in dropper bottles, which is excellent, which is what you want these days, and you also get your own little brush that you can start with straight away. Now, the paints themselves are also all very interesting ones. You have here a chocolate rose, you have a natural skin, you have a rosy pink, you have a sunlit skin, you have a balanced skin, you have dark flesh, you have fair skin, and you have matte skin. So we'll start with our first mini with some of the chocolate rose skin. Now, one thing I'm noticing is it's a very watery consistency, which is a good thing. It means that you put multiple layers on. So again, this is good for fine detail. So I'm going to have to put a couple of layers on this. So what I'll do is I'll count how many layers I have to put on, and then I will get back to you all. Now you can see here that I've just done 2 layers of the pink skin, and it's come out quite well. It surprised me actually how accurate a skin tone this is, because of course white people, humans, always tend to be a little bit pink. But this is on the black background, so now we're going to try it on the white base color. Now you can already tell that you're going to need a lot less base coats with a white base color, and again, it's toned down a little bit, but again, what we'll do is we'll paint it up and we'll do a side-by-side comparison of the very first paint, which is chocolate rose. Now I have to say, even thinned down, there's great coverage with the paint on a white base. So again, most people I think would kind of naturally use a white kind of base or a light base to kind of paint their flesh color minis. But yeah, I'm noticing now that it's much more effective on a white base, but nevertheless, it stands out nicely as well on the black background. I was still impressed with how this one came out. So I've done a very thin base coat on both in black and white, and I have to say the chocolate rose came out a lot better than I thought. It does look like a kind of a very big pink paint, but I have to say it is unmistakably a very good base flesh color. So if you were to go for something like a Bugman's Glow, which would be kind of typical for the GW, this I think is a better version of it, because it still has kind of the same warm pink, but not quite as kind of pink, if you know what I mean. That there's a bit more of a kind of a realistic base tone flesh to it here. And as you can see here, this is just 2 layers, and muscularity has come out very much so on this Carragaccolite miniature. So this is it on the white background, or white base and a black base, and it has worked exceptionally well on both. So we'll check the next paint in the set, which is going to be natural skin. So again, as you can see, it's going to need a couple of thin paints, a couple of thin coats, but again, another standout color. So this is it on black. So this is the result after about 3 coats of natural skin. Again, good coverage. It does kind of, because it's a thin paint, you don't kind of block the details, and it does give a nice kind of alternative skin tone as well. I think I'm still a bit more of a fan of the chocolate pink, but this feels more like a layer paint. There's a touch of Ungor flesh, or a kind of a natural nice shade, but that's it on the black based mini. So we'll move on now to the white one. And again, as you can see, the white just works so much better for these paints. So if you were going to be doing an entire skin line range, obviously the lighter base paints or base colors is what you want to do. But the base I have here now is called White Scar. But again, that's just one very thin layer, and already there's excellent coverage on it. So this is the natural skin tone. Now I have to say, this was just one coat and it has excellent coverage. This paint now in particular has really surprised me with the white base, that it just took to it as naturally as you can get. Now as you can see, there is still a slight distinction between the dark and the white, so depending of course again on what you decide to base your minis with. But this is the natural skin color, and again I have to say, excellent paint. Again, it's acrylic, dried very well, and you get 2 fairly satisfying results. It does take a few more. This was about 3 or 4 coats, whereas this one is literally just maybe 1 and 1.5 coats. So excellent coverage with the natural skin paint. So the next paint is going to be a rosy pink with my 2 lads here. So we'll have a look and see what we get with this one. So we're just going to try the rosy pink here on his chest. And again, this is better. Again, there's better coverage again with this paint. I'd say slightly a bit more powerful than the natural skin. Certainly on the black, it's standing out a lot more. But again, good coverage. Stands out really nicely. So I'll paint this up and we'll have a look when he's done. And again, it took a couple of layers. As you can see, it's still a little wet, but it took a couple of layers to get a kind of a base tone on this one. So that was on the black. We're going to try again now on the white. Again, you can see there's excellent coverage on a white base. So if you were to use these paints, I would definitely recommend that you use them with a white base. Now this is the end product of rosy pink. Again, 3 layers and 1.5 layers. So again, the paints themselves, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. They're very good. So the reason you'll be buying these paints is for the unique skin tone colors that they give. So this is what you get with a rosy pink on white base and a rosy pink on a black base. I have to say, the coverage with the sunlit skin is better than the previous 2. That it's going over the model quite nicely, and it's sticking to it quite nicely. Now it's combating very much with the black undercoat, but nevertheless I'm impressed that it's doing as well as it is. Now that's after 2 little layers of paints. So what we're going to do while we're letting that do its thing, we're just going to see how it goes on to the white base. And again, yeah, all the difference in the world. So if you're working with these paints, definitely kind of use lighter bases. But again, yep, great coverage straight away, immediately. So, and it's a nice thin paint, so you're not going to block any details when you kind of blodge it on, even if you're doing it a little bit carelessly like I am there. So what we'll do is we'll get some of the sunlit skin on this guy, 1 more layer on him, and we'll have a look at the result in the end. But the irony of painting sunlit skin in Ireland is not lost on me. So this is after about 3 or 4 layers, and this one is again after a layer and a half. So this is the sunlit skin model with the Carrick acolytes and the actual paints. So again, a similar enough result actually. So again, this is only a little bit wet because I've just literally thrown on another quick little layer there. But you'll need multiple layers again for the black and just 1.5 layers for the white. So again, solid paint, good coverage, and that's the color you get. So the marketing for Golden Maple paints brings out a couple of points. The first is that it's a quick drying paint, and the answer to that is yes, it is indeed a very quick drying paint. It's very like acrylic paints in the sense that if you give it a minute or two, it'll dry. Now it's slightly slower than Games Workshop or other kind of paints of that range, but nevertheless, this is the difference of a minute. But indeed, very quick drying. Also that it's a water-based painting, that it's suitable for novices, and that any mistakes can be quickly washed off with water. Now it might vary on the actual paint. Some of them are slightly more water-based than others. Some will flow on a little bit stronger. But again, it's very mistake-friendly. So, I mean, if there is a problem, you can get the paint off quite easily. It's also, because it's a water-based paint, means that you have to put several layers on it. Now, as you will see or have seen with the miniatures, depending on whether I was using a black undercoat or a white undercoat, it depended how many layers I would have to put on each. However, it works quite well in that aspect. The third point is that the painting is smooth without graininess and achieves a vibrant effect. And again, that is quite correct because it's a dropper bottle. It comes out quite smoothly, it flows quite smoothly, it goes onto the actual product, onto the mini, very nicely. I didn't find any blotches or blobs or anything like that. It was quite a fun, easy and smooth paint to work with. And finally, that it's suitable for detail painting. And on this, again, I would agree because there's a nice range of flesh paints here. And you can also mix them together. So if you want to get a nice gradient going up or a nice gradient going down, that is indeed very possible. So there is a lot of good potential in this face and skin color set. Now already from the off, there's great coverage in balanced skin. So there's must be more pigmentation in this one. This feels more like a base paint than a layer paint because even here on the black, which I've been struggling with 1 or 2 of the other colors, it's taken to it immediately. So the balanced skin is an excellent paint. Yeah, it's just taken to it straight away. This one now is actually a dream to work with. So it's covering nicely and very easily. So what I'll do is I will do this entire model and I'll start in the next one. So while the black base is settling, we'll just do a quick test on the white base. Now it really took to the black base, so I imagine it'll be 10 times as good here on the white base. And again, it is just perfect, simple coverage. Oh, this paint just goes on really well on this one. So the balanced skin paint is an excellent one, I have to say. This is the one I've been most impressed with so far. And again, just 2 seconds and already you're getting incredible coverage. So this is the end result of the balanced skin on the black based mini and the white based mini, and I have to say this is a excellent paint. This one now, along with the very first one, which was called Chocolate Rose, I think would be my favorites. An excellent paint, this one. Now again, there's good coverage, but it's going to be 1 or 2 layers at least on the dark undercoating. So I'll finish this and we'll check back in a second. So just a couple of layers on this one was sufficient to give it a nice bit of coverage. So we're going to try here on the white base, and as I suspect with all the others, it's going to take to it nearly immediately. And yeah, again, if you're using a white base, same old thing, that it goes on so much easier. But again, Yeah, working with this stuff here now at this moment is actually like a dream. That is just so easy. It goes on, just even a tiny bit of water and it flows all over. So a lovely base on this, especially on the lighter base colors. So what I'll do is I'll finish the two and I'll put them side by side with the paint. So the dark flesh, again, is an interesting color. It went on quite well, so there's a nice base with it on the black undercoat. The white undercoat, it just goes straight on. Yep, an impressive color, this one. And again, a nice subtle shade difference between this one and the previous ones. So we'll start with the black fillet and see how the fair affects this one. Now this should be, I'd say this will need a lot of layers, or not. I'm actually surprised at the coverage on this one. Now this one is actually quite interesting. That went on a lot smoother than I thought it would, and is impacting a lot more than I thought it would. Now this, I'd say, would be the GML equivalent of Rakarth Flesh, which is the paint that I would normally use for my Carrick Acolytes. So this is the one I would be most interested in, because I always like kind of starting with a very pale base and then staining with something like Reichland Flesh Shade. Is just an easy, handy way to kind of paint up skin on minis. But yeah, no, I'm impressed so far at the coverage on this one. So I'll finish this model and we'll see what it looks like when it's done. So as expected, the fair skin takes quite a few layers. It did go on the first time quite well, so it only took about 3 layers as opposed to maybe 4 or 5 or 6 that I had thought. So it's there's a lot more kind of power in this paint than I thought there would be. So again, we'll try the white one here, and again, it's going on. It would need a second layer, I think, but it's taking to it quite well. So this is the fair skin. It went on initially the first time very well, but it's not consistent. It tends to kind of pool into the edges. So the pecks I found on both, including the white, had to be done a couple of times. But otherwise, it's a good color and has a great consistency. So I mean, it's a perfect kind of, I would say, final highlight if you wanted to do anything in terms of flesh, or if you, like myself, you just like making pale Carrick Acolytes, you could put a Reichland Flesh Shade over it and it would be job done. But yeah, no, the fair skin now is a good paint. Quite impressed with that one. And already it seems to be doing like the previous one, pooling a little bit, but otherwise good coverage. So again, it's going to be a standout paint, I think. Matte skin, of course, being a little bit darker. So again, it's covering the black base tone or base coat very well. Exceptionally well, actually. And we'll check to see how the pecs, the abs come out, I should say. Yep, the abs. It's a good paint because it doesn't cover any detail. I mean, I'm kind of casting it over quite easily. Now you can see here that, yeah, the pec is covered, but now in the deep inside part, it'll need a second layer. But otherwise, nice water, thin base paint, and covering well. So I'll do the entire model and we'll come back to it. So this is the final cover on the black base, and yeah, it's come out quite well. It took a couple of layers, but good coverage. Nice simple thin paint. It does dry a fraction quicker than the others, but no, good coverage on the black undercoating. So we'll try now on the white, and I'm sure it'll take to it almost straight away. Yep, as you can see, not a bother on it. Takes to it like a fish to water. And yeah, the muscularity popping already across the entire mini. So I'll finish up with the white and we'll do a comparison between the two. So again, the coverage on the white-based miniature was much better than the black, but exceptionally so actually. I thought that the coverage on the white-based miniature was very good. So I mean, normally for flesh tones, you'd be kind of working from a light grey kind of base coat perspective anyway. So across the board, all these paints have worked very well on the white and respectably well on the black. You have to do an extra coat or two, but nevertheless, as has happened with myself in the past, if you base coat with the wrong coat, it does give a slight darker shade to the paint, but they're strong enough to be able to cover it. So that was the final paint, matte skin. Chocolate Rose was a very good first start for the paint collection because it felt like a base color and it covered both very well. Very reminiscent of the Bugman's Glow paint. I thought that this would be an excellent base for any kind of detailed flesh tones that you have. So very impressed with the Chocolate Rose. The next paint was Natural Skin, which surprised me actually. I thought it'd be kind of a bit too yellow, but the models came out quite well. Of course, it struggled a little bit with the black, as most of them would do a tiny bit, but again, on the white across, it worked very well. So a nice kind of layer shade to go up one with. The next one was a rosy pink. So if Chocolate Rose was just a shade too dark for you, another solid base coat to kind of work up with. Again, it's something you could kind of layer on top of Chocolate Rose to work your way up to some of the lighter colors. But the rosy pink I thought worked very well on both the black undercoat and the white undercoat models. The next one was Sunlit Skin, which is a very yellow type of skin. It kind of struck me a little bit, but I guess that's just really the name of it. But nevertheless, if you wanted to go for fantasy painting, I thought that this would kind of give a lovely kind of shade to some of the skin tones or textures, or even if you want to say hobgrots from the Age of Sigmar, or even some of the kind of the larger beasts, that this would be an excellent kind of off-color skin for the hobgrots or different types of goblins, things like that. So a very interesting type of skin, and again took to both kind of base coats very well. Balanced Skin was a good paint. It took to the black undercoat very well, and it took to the white undercoat exceptionally well. A nice starting point, again, I think, for a lot of models if you wanted to kind of paint. But even if you didn't, again, it'd be a nice alternative one for, say, the Hobgrot Goblins if you wanted to paint some of those. That would work very well with, say, Sunlit Skin. That'd be a nice little base, and then again, you can kind of work up to it. So there's a nice balance and kind of shade difference between all of the ones so far, that they will work very well with each other. And I found that Balanced Skin was quite a good one. The next one was Dark Flesh, again, which surprisingly took to the black undercoat quite well, and obviously took to the white undercoat very naturally. Again, a slight offbeat yellow, but would work very well with Sunlit Skin and perhaps Natural Skin on these shades. So again, it kind of darkens and lightens a little bit, and of course if you mix the two, that you can kind of get your perfect mixture. But again, a very distinct color, a very solid paint, and went onto the models very well. Fair Skin was, of all of them, it was the one that was kind of the most of a chore, especially on the black mini, undercoated mini. But nevertheless, it is literally what it says on the tin, a fair skin. So naturally, because of the actual shade and the color, it's going to take a little bit more work. But again, I found it worked very well. Again, for my Carrick Acolytes, I tend to kind of do an all-over wash. So the all-over wash would be this would probably be my go-to area for fair skin for Carrick Acolytes, or even if I had other minis, such as, like, say, if you're playing with Chaos miniatures, that they would have kind of skinned like animal skins, or even kind of the hands and skins of their enemies that have been kind of sun bleached. This would be an excellent one, because even with just a little bit of a shade or a flesh tone shade on it, that you could kind of color it up very nicely. So again, a very dry, bleached, kind of scary looking skin, but it doesn't, I think this would be perfect for, say, skin that is not necessarily living. And finally, we have a matte skin, again, which seems more like a kind of a base color again, but stands out very well, especially from the tabletop perspective. It just looks like a perfect natural skin color. If you were someone who just wanted to do a kind of a minimal amount of your paints, you'd have a very good kind of base here for any of your guardsmen, for any of your minis, for any of your kind of Carrick acolytes going out there. It dried a little bit faster than the others for some reason. Maybe it was just the lights have heated up the room a little bit. I'm not 100% sure, but also these should be kind of done on a wet palette. Now I've done them straight from the palette, which is just generally how I paint. But if you used a wet palette, of course, this would not be a problem. But again, a nice base offbeat standing color, and I thought that this, along with the rosy pink and fair skin, would serve quite well for minis that are horde armies that you just want to get the basic part done, but not kind of do a lot of fine little touches. But again, it's only a shade or two off some of the other colors here. So in terms of the entire face and skin color set, I'm very impressed. Now, I've been working with some of the golden maple brushes and they've always been excellent. So this came with the actual set, and I was thinking that this would be a lovely gift for the miniature painter in your life, because there is a lovely way to keep it. The actual cover itself is perfect, and it comes with a ton of brushes, an absolute ton, covering any kind of scenario or eventuality you might need. So again, they have the simple kind of hold for most painters, and the tips are very good. So I'll just show you the type of tips and brushes that you get. So you get, of course, the 4-0. You get the 1, which is a nice kind of simple base brush. You have the 4-0 again, so you get at least 2 of those. And you get another different type of 1, but with a point. You get the 2-0. You get the 0. So the 0 and the 1, of course, have slight differences, as you can see. So it's interesting, especially if you kind of wanted to work on terrain that would just allow you to give a much bigger baser coverage. You have a standard 0, which a nice long tip here. You have the 2-0, again, slightly broader. You have the standard 0, again, a nice simple straight tip. You have the other 0, a standard 1, standard 1 with an extra long paint. So it's not just kind of miniatures that you would paint with these, but you would kind of go into scale model, you would go into paint by numbers, watercolor and oil, miniature. So I mean, acrylic paints. There's a great amount of little brushes here that would take you a long time to get through, and great variety in them. So this one now is a 3-0. And again, even with the face and skin color set, I used the standard golden maple brush there, and it kept its point excellently well. And this one now is perfect, because this is a 3-0, which would be perfect for the tiny little bits and pieces. And you have a 2-0, which again would be perfect for the tiny little bits and pieces. And it comes with its own little bag and a simple storage compartment. So to sum up, the face and color set is very good. Honestly, I was quite impressed, especially with the effect it had on the models that were undercoated with a Chaos Black color. There's great variance, very easy to work with, went on very smoothly. I had no problems at any point, and I think that the range of paints that you give here is very good. It would cover things like, say, the Hobgrots, which would be an Age of Sigmar monster. The Carrick Acolytes would be kind of a pale-skinned monster. It would cover easily human beings, and would cover other things like kind of various shades of goblins and kind of sun-bleached people, things like that. So there is a lot to work with here for the good painter in your life. The brushes was a nice little surprise. We weren't expecting those, but again, as you can see, there's a lot in here, and I think this would make a lovely little gift for the painter in your life. One other thing we didn't cover, and I'm sure a lot of people are asking, is this something you can work with an airbrush? And the answer is yes. You need something like a 75% to a 95% alcohol mix, or a 1:1 or a 1:5 IPA ratio. But in a nutshell, the golden maple face and skin color set gets a big thumbs up from us. So as always, if you enjoy these videos, please like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. And until next time, this is Sean from The Lucky Roll, signing off.